Friends, we are here. We are here. Took me some time. A busy day today. Maybe some of you saw it. Maybe some of you saw that my speech from the 21 convention in the fall just came out. Really recommend you guys check that out. If you guys have not checked out my speech from the fall, I would love if you did it. I would love if you did it. I think I did a pretty good job personally, but it's my first time on stage like that. I mean, I've been in debates before, and I've spoken before a crowd, but never like that. Never like that. That was an hour on stage giving a speech from memory, no script or anything, and so it's a fun time, really big growing experience for me. It's very appreciative to Anthony for the opportunity. So if you guys go and check it out today, in particular, it's great because that really helps with the rankings. So 3 pillars of attraction. I go into some deep stuff there. All right. First, the wine. So this wine, in all sincerity, has been opened a couple days prior. But I've had this wine before, so it's not as if, even if it's not ideal, it's not as if I wouldn't know what it tastes like. This is a Jura Chardonnay. Now, there's some mixed feelings about this wine from people. I don't know if you can tell, this color is a very, very deep, it's almost like a gold green, but it's very, very deep color. Now, I'm a big fan of Jura wines. I'm a big fan because Jura, so to give you an idea, a lot of you know where Burgundy is. Okay, Burgundy is in eastern France. Jura is in further eastern France. It's in the Jura Mountains, which are sort of like foothills of the Alps. Okay, the Jura Mountains extend into Switzerland, to give you an idea. So Jura is on the eastern part of what was at one point an inland sea. So if you go, I don't have the book right here. I could show you otherwise. Book's upstairs. But you go from the south of France up through the Rhone Valley, right, up through the Rhone. And where the Saône is, this is Burgundy. The Rhone Saône kind of intersection. This area used to be an inland sea. And so what you have is on Burgundy is on the western side of this former sea, which is now like a valley, and Jura is on the eastern side, which is interesting because Burgundy, which is, as we've talked about, one of the most superior wine regions in the world, uh, very, very, the soil's limestone, right? This is all these old clams and whatnot, crustaceans from hundreds of thousands of years, from hundreds of millions of years ago, basically, from the Jurassic and Cretaceous period. I can't recall which this limestone comes from. Could even actually come from the Triassic. Some of the stuff is very old. Anyway, so the point of all this is that Jura, and I feature Jura a lot because it doesn't get a lot of attention, especially outside of New York in America. But Jura is very similar to Burgundy in a lot of ways. Very similar climate, very similar soil, right? Because they're from opposite sides of the same sea. So they both have limestone. And Jura, like Burgundy, is predominantly Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. Now, Jura also is very rustic. It doesn't have the development of Burgundy, nor the cachet. And to be fair, Jura is not as good of a region as Burgundy, but you can produce a lot of really similar wines as Burgundy there for a fraction of the price. Now, they do have their own little elements to them, but you're not going to get anything in the world that tastes as close to Burgundy as Jura. You're not going to get it. Even Oregon Pinots, which try to do a good job, Jura is the best with it. So Jura also has a couple of other interesting varietals, which I will showcase in their time. But this is a Chardonnay. Now, it's very briny. It's very briny. This is like if you're going to have olive brine. So, and it's very acidic. It's got a bite. I like it. Some people don't like it. But you can make Jura Chardonnays very, very refined and delicate. This one, let's just say, is it's near the end of its shelf life, and it's done well, but just I'm trying to drink it up. So, question time. Dating questions. First question. How do you deal with a girl that won't block her ex from when she was 14? They dated when she was 14. Now we're both 23, and he was also her first. Okay. Well, this is really the devil's in the details here, because you say, why won't she block her ex? Well, what is she doing with her ex? Is she like really engaging with him on a regular basis? Is she messaging him? Are they interacting with each other's posts? Do they talk a lot? If that's the case, then there's a situation here, and you basically just end it, right? Because she's playing games and she's not. She's keeping a back option. Let's put it that way. She's got an escape hatch. But if she's just simply following this guy and there's not much interaction, and you went on there and you saw, hey, you're following your ex, I don't like that, I want you to not follow him, then you are actually the one who's really insecure in the situation, and she's not complying with you, probably less because she cares about that guy, but because she thinks that you're weak because you're upset by it and isn't giving that to you. Now maybe there's a mix of these two things. Maybe she liked something and then you didn't like that, and so you wanted her gone with it. I get this, but I need to caution you guys about being controlling. Okay, you don't want to be controlling with a woman. A lot of guys do this, but because in a lot of traditions, this is something that what men would do is they try to control women. And I'm not saying this from a perspective of like, how dare you try to control women? Not that I think it's healthy, but it's not coming from that perspective. It's just simply not effective, guys. It's not effective. If you try to control a woman, she'll try to get out from under your control. She's either going to be a very diminished person, or she's going to do things that are sneaky and cheat on you. So much better to not try to control her, but to pay attention to her and see what she does. And you can call it out after you've seen some stuff for a bit. You can call it out and say, so you're messaging your ex, like, what's going on with that? She's like, oh, it's nothing, like, it's fine, everything's great. It's like, okay, why are you messaging him though? What's going on with that? And if she tries to make a little no big deal out of it, you can say, I don't think that that's really appropriate given our relationship, and see what she does. If she makes a big deal, maybe if she doesn't seem to realize that what she's doing is wrong, because look, sometimes a woman will get kind of caught up in a mood and a feeling, and maybe she'll engage with the guy, but it doesn't mean that she's really invested in it. And if she's honest with herself, she might realize that, you know what, this is kind of silly. What am I doing? It ended and all's good, right? It could just be a momentary blips of judgment rather than a lack of character. But if she's going to continue and she's going to make excuses and saying, you can't tell me what to do, it's like, I'm not telling you what to do. You want to message him, go ahead and message him. And then you leave. Then you break up with her. Because the point here is not trying to control her behavior. If you can't, if your presence itself isn't, like, she's doing that because she thinks that you're not going to leave. And this is one of the things about control. Control is connected to insecurity, because if you feel like you need to control her, it's because you don't feel like you can get someone better than her, right? It's connected to a lack of abundance mindset. So I would not recommend having more than one call out with her. And if she continues with it, just end it. Because then she's showing you what she really feels. And what'll happen is that she'll freak out, then she'll block him and everything, and she'll come back, and standards and whatnot will change accordingly. But so that's the first one. So, and yeah, man, giving up insecurities is very hard. It is hard. It's a process. So be kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself. You're human. Okay. Next question. How do you upgrade yourself as a man? I'm 12 to 14%. I'm about 26, not 27 years old. 12 to 14% body fat. Got a good job. People compliment me all the time on how I look, how I'm doing. But I need validation. It's my worst trait. How to stop it? Well, it's funny. It's funny. It's good that the awareness is there about the validation, but even the question belies it, right? How do I upgrade myself as a man? I have this need for validation. How do I get over this need for validation? What do I have to do? Well, this is the trap, and I've talked about this with clients before. It's a very common thing in our corner of the internet self-improvement sphere. Um, Guys, it's good to find ways to improve yourself. It's good to be a better man. You gotta also do things from a position of alignment and not from a position of I'm not good enough. I need to be better. I see this a lot. The guys say, "Be better." I've mentioned before, you must declare unceasing more upon yourself. This is not really healthy. It's not healthy. Most of you guys are really stressed out. Most of you guys are really, really stressed out. You don't realize how stressed out you are. And you just keep putting on more stuff on your plate. I have to become better in this way, better in this way. Uh, it's not going to make things better for you. The first step is developing yourself as a man, becoming stronger, more successful, etc. The next step is accepting yourself, right? Now, ideally, you accept yourself first, but generally, the way that this pattern occurs is that as a man, you are going to go and take action and do things, right? You're going to see, hey, I've been a quote unquote a bitch. I haven't been aware. I haven't been improving myself. Now I'm going to improve myself. And the next step is then discarding that need for improvement because you already understand your value enough and you have nothing to prove to anybody, including yourself. And so instead, what you do is you act on your own desire and whim. That's the next step. So getting rid of validation is actually the need for validation, the need for all this stuff. You actually, it's a paradox because how do I get rid of my need for validation? Stop trying to get rid of your need for validation. Like stop doing things to try to become validated, right? The assumption is incorrect. The assumption that I have to do something to get that validation, that's where the error is. So that's the real message, guys. The elite levels of growth and certainly like a healthy sense of self come from no longer feeling the need to do things, and that's when life gets good. Life gets good. So, girl ghosted. She said she'd come over. She didn't. I didn't make any plans. I don't really care that she ghosted, but the night was wasted. We're both 22. How to avoid this or learn when to take a girl seriously or not? Well, and also he mentions about how he knows that ghosting's a thing, but how do we mitigate this? What's the damage control here? Well, it seems as if this was done the night before, and if the way that we're talking tactically here first, okay, tactically here first. The night before, there was plans for her to come over, but there was no follow-up day of. With a lot of younger girls who are immature, they get nervous that maybe you're going to do something else. They also get distracted. Maybe they have another plan. But a lot of this also comes from a position of nervousness, like, I don't want to come across too eager. I don't know, maybe are we still hanging out? Like, I've gotten ridiculous things from girls before where it's like you make plans with them and then it's like later that day they text you, are we still hanging out tonight? It's like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Are we still hanging out? Like, we made plans. We're hanging out. But these girls are very, they're nervous, right? And so a lot of times they'll bail because not only does that protect them, but it also gives them some power, right? And this is the sense of games that go on with a girl. Leaving a day beforehand you usually want to send a text earlier to reassure. You usually want to do that just because it makes it more likely to be locked in. And also, you're not going to be sitting there waiting for her to come over and she doesn't. You'll have at least known earlier in that day so you can make other plans accordingly. Flaking 24 hours before is much different than flaking 3 hours before. Flaking 3 hours before is much more serious offense. In her mind, the thing, obviously you thought it was going on, but in her mind, that wasn't going to, she had maybe decided like, oh, I don't know if this is going to happen. She was able to tell herself that. I don't know if this is going to happen. So I'll go. Now, what some guys do in response to this is they double book, and so they'll always cancel on the girl. I don't recommend that. That creates more and more of this bullshit going around. So I would really just confirm day of with her, like, see you at 5. You don't have to say, like, are you coming? You don't want to say, are you coming over? Because that subcommunicates that you didn't think she would. But by saying, like, see you at 5 o'clock, right, or see you at 7, or bring this, like, then you're implicitly reaffirming it. And if she doesn't respond, then you could send a follow-up to her, like a question mark. You could do that, but generally, if you don't get any response from her, you could say something like, you've been, like, coming over. You're coming over, right? Because otherwise, I'm going to make other plans. Like, you can do that, and that can create a little bit of defensiveness, but it's good because then she sees that you have other things to do. You're going to do other stuff. Now, also, let's talk about flaking in general. Like, the question here was how to avoid or learn when to take her seriously or not. A lot of it is the timing of her text and how much she's engaged. If she's really leaning out from the interaction, like she's not saying a lot, she's not replying to those messages I just mentioned, then you sort of know that she's not really fully on board with it, and you can start to get the flaky signals, and you can do something like I just said, pull out of the situation. But a lot of it just comes with practice. And really seeing to what extent a girl is really engaged. If she's really excited, she's really enthusiastic, usually that's mitigated. And she's not going to, and if she gives you an excuse later on that night, like, that's not cool. It's like, it's not good for a girl to flake, but if she doesn't even say anything until afterwards, you basically say, I get it, but you didn't actually say anything to me. I don't do that. If you do that again, I'm not seeing you anymore, basically. And that may seem like really aggressive, but the reality is it's just a boundary. And a lot of guys need to understand that enforcing a boundary is not being weird. And the girl might be like, oh, no, like you're taking it too seriously. That's really just fuck off, right? Just fuck off. Because everything is about your boundaries. If you can't enforce a boundary with a girl, then she's going to do this kind of shit again. So, all right. Next question. Advice to late bloomers with trouble getting laid. How does sex take priority over long-term stuff like health and career? Well, look, guys, look. Sex is important, and it is a rite of passage as a man. However, a lot of guys will use sex as a way to escape from higher responsibilities, like really being a man. Like, being able to have sex with a woman, like, it is an indicator of masculinity that a woman wants to sleep with you. I 100% agree with that. I would be lying if I said it wasn't true. But being able to be self-sufficient and being in good shape and taking care of yourself are higher priorities. And historically, women were what came after that, right? Remember, when we talk about the 3 priorities in life, the 3 essences of life, it's health, wealth, and then relationships. So in my perspective, it is much better for a guy to be focusing on his health and then his wealth and then his relationships with women than in a different order. Because a lot of guys have none of this stuff put together. And they look at women, and women are really an escape for them, especially when it comes to things like wealth. A lot of guys will take their energy, their sexual energy, and rather than transmute it into actual impact, they maneuver it towards trying to get their release. And look, guys, I am among this class. I was among this class, at least. I didn't know what I wanted to really do, and I went and gamed, right? A game. Now, I was able to actually turn it into a business, but that's not a very common thing. So, late bloomers, guys who haven't put this stuff together, what's the advice? Well, the advice is that if you are building stuff up within your career, if you're building stuff up within your career and you're in great shape, make sure that your ambition is putting you in proximity to women. Okay? Make sure that your ambition is putting you in proximity to women. And so that you are working to penetrate the world so that women are around you, so that you don't, so that then it becomes a matter of learning how to interact with them, learning how to attract them. It's not so much of a matter of, are women paying attention to me? I think that the trap for a lot of guys is that they do well in their career, but maybe they don't put themselves in situations where women are even around them at all. And in some careers, this is going to be harder than others. But this is important because it's much easier to learn how to get good with women if your success, so to speak, has cachet in the community, right? It's really more about wealth. It's more about success, right? Wealth is good, but success is better because success entails status and social elements. And from there, so for late bloomers, it's like, if you haven't leveraged your circle, that's okay. I know a lot of guys who they have a lot of women who would be potentially interested in them. They just can't see it, but they have put themselves in communities where there are women, and they're doing things where there are women, and they have to maybe learn how to interact with the women. But it's much different than like being a guy who, okay, I'm in shape and I've got a good job, but now I got to go learn to cold approach women on the street. That doesn't make sense. I mean, it's no offense to the day game things. I think day game is a niche, and I think it's wonderful. And I think you can meet some phenomenal women through it. But it's not necessary. It's not necessary. And if you've taken care of your success, you should be able to be exposed to women, and you should be able to leverage them. And if you're not, then you have to broaden your vision, broaden your ambition of what success means. So that's my perspective. Guys who have that stuff taken care of, there's women around. There are women around. And that's a good way to put yourself in a great position. And last point on this, the guys who, when they were younger and partying and hooking up with girls who didn't have that stuff put together, if they don't get that part of their life put together by the time they're your age, then you are going to be at a much bigger advantage than them, because I know guys who are in their 40s and 50s and are just cleaning up with beautiful young women because they have their life so put together that women are a natural afterthought, and they don't have to become some sort of Casanova to capitalize, right? Pre-selection and persona are two ways of getting the same thing, right? Pre-selection's passive value, persona's active value. You want to learn more about this, you can check out my speech, right, that we just launched from the 21 convention. But if you have high pre-selection, which guys who have their career sorted out and their health, you don't need as much game. So that's my advice. All right, last question before you, and you guys can always ask some questions. You're welcome to. Friend's girl was a bitch. She said stuff to him when she was drunk, but sounded like she said what she had wanted, like what she actually felt. The guy dismissed this. My friend dismissed this. He said it wasn't a big deal. She was drunk. How to judge when a partner's actions when they're drunk? Do they reveal their true nature? Should you let them or should you let them off? Well, this is a good question. There's an old Latin expression, in vino veritas, right? In wine there is truth, which is, guys, this is why I have wine with the periscope, because this is truth, right? I'm speaking truth because no, but it's actually it's a good point, right? That people say the truth when they're drunk. Now, I think that technically speaking, they say what they feel when they're drunk. Okay? It may not be the truth, but it could be the truth of how they feel in that moment. Now, why does someone feel that way in a moment? Well, it could be that there are some things that occurred, right? Sure. But broader than that even, it's that there's usually some things that they have as like resentment that they're holding under the surface, and they don't feel like they can say it unless they've had the alcohol as a release valve. And this is important. So it's like, oh, she said that she was drunk and she didn't mean it. Well, she did mean it, actually. She did mean it. Now, maybe the way it came out is not exactly how she meant it, but there was something in there that was true that needs to be addressed. And it could be that it's only a little bit of what he's actually doing, and it's more to do with some emotional issues on her end that she doesn't feel like, I don't know what the issue in question was, but a lot of women repress how they feel, and when they're drunk, all that anger explodes. All that anger explodes at everybody around, and or especially the person who they feel the preponderance of anger towards. So I don't think, this is my sort of nuanced take on it, and I've experienced this stuff firsthand with girls, right? And I've also, as a guy who has, I'm pretty happy drunk in general, but I have had my moments where I can be quite aggressive and vicious, frankly, because the same thing that allows me to read people and heal them, I can really tear people apart. I mean, it's not something I'm proud of, but I can really tear people apart because I can see where they are most vulnerable, and I can just jab a knife into it over and over again. So I'm not proud of that, but anyway. So the point here being, you you watch why people do what they do under the influence, not just what. And so the issue here is not to focus so much on the content of what she says, or how she says it. There could be a stylistic aspect, which can be a good impetus. It could be a good signal for you to, how do I put this? She explodes, for instance. She says some nasty stuff, and that gives you a reason to address deeper reasons in the relationship, right? Gives you a reason to address deeper things in the relationship. She's given you the necessary political capital to talk about something in a very smooth and natural way, and you can get to the heart of it. What did you mean by this? And she could say, like, I don't know why I said, I didn't mean it. And it's like, well, this isn't acceptable for me. I'm not going to tolerate this, right? What is this coming from? And that could be a thing for her to then go seek help, right? Because maybe there's a real deep sense of inferiority, and she becomes nasty to you because in that moment, all of her sense of self-loathing pours out, and she projects it out towards you. So there's truth in it, but alcohol distorts that truth. So it's a good it's a good signal, but I wouldn't say that it exactly gives the full picture. Put it that way. Um, don't take what someone says when they're drunk as what they mean to say to you, what they want to say to you, but there is truth in it. There is truth in it, and you have to acknowledge that. So, guys, I don't see any other questions. We already had a periscope earlier this week, and we're a bit late here, so we can cut early. It's no big deal. I appreciate you all, and we'll talk soon. See ya.